now you've made your setup row of triangles, we're going to move on to the next row, and that row is the first row of rectangles, these going up, coming out of the sort of side of the triangles here. But this next row is kind of in 3 sections, because if you go right across, we're going to be beginning down on this side, you will see that we've actually got to start with this triangle. So I'll show you how to do that. That's going to be section 1. Then we've got the rectangles themselves all the way along, so that will be section 2. And then we end with another triangle, and what that does, hard to see here, but it keeps your edge straight each side. Okay, so you're sort of finishing off and starting and finishing each row of rectangles with a triangle. So like I said, 3 sections, 1, 2 and 3. Let's get going. Okay, so at the beginning of this section, which is in your pattern is called the first section of rectangles, we're starting off making that edge triangle that I showed you, and you can see hopefully from the purl bumps that we're starting on a wrong side here. Okay, so which means we're going to start with purling. Okay, so we're going to start by purling 2 and turning our work. Right, and now when I turn the work, we've got to make some stitches. So this is a little technique. If you haven't seen it before, this is what's referred to as M1, which is make 1, and this is how we're going to do it. So first of all, we're going to knit 1. Then we've got to do this M1 or make 1, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the tip of the left needle and we're going to put it underneath this bar. Can you see this bar here? Between this stitch and the stitch that is left on the left needle. It's that bar right there. Okay, I'm going to put the tip of the needle under that bar from the front to the back, and what you can see, what it's done is it's lifted that bar over the top of the needle and created something that we can knit into. So I'm going to knit into the back of the stitch. Okay, so just going to put my needle tip, if you can just see that there, whoops, not into 2, into 1, into the back of that stitch, wrap it and knit it, and we've now made a nice tight neat stitch there where there wasn't one before. So I've gone knit 1, make 1 and knit 1, and then I'm going to turn. I love this. This is such a neat and beautiful way of doing things. It's a joy, this. I hope you'll like it. Right, so I'm going to purl 2, 1 and 2, and this is the bit which is very pleasing indeed, purling 2 together. So what it's going to do is going to start sort of closing up the gap between what we're making and the triangle that was there before. So as we've done before on our decrease row, we just put our needle tip through the next stitch as if to purl, and also the one after that as if to purl. Wrap that purlwise and knit them together. Okay, so let's turn our work again. So this time, to finish this row, we've got to do knit 2 and then make 1. So you're going to make 1 just before that last stitch every single time. Okay, so if you look, you can just see that bar there. I'm going to keep my needle there to help me. Put my left needle tip under it and knit. This is another way of helping. Knit into the back. Okay, I'll show you that again, because sometimes it's a little bit tight and a little bit difficult to get into the back. So what I do is I go under the front and over the top of the needle, and lo and behold, I am in the back. So there's another little tip for you. Knit 1. Okay, and that's done. You can already see that triangle emerging, can't you? So we're just going to go through those rows following that little pattern, which is knitting to the last stitch and making 1, and then purling to the last stitch and purling that stitch together with the one across the gap. And that's all we're going to do for a bit. So I'm going to continue until I get to needing to purl 7. So let me just show you one more time. So I'm purling 3 this time, not 2. You can see the gap, can't you? Just as we had before, very obvious gap. So I'm going to put my needle in as if to purl, and my needle in the next one as well, and purl those 2 together. All right, so like I said, I'm going to continue doing this until I get to purling 7, I think, or maybe purling 6, let's see. So off I go, knitting to the end, or to the penultimate stitch, making 1, and yada yada yada, off I go. I'll see you at the end. Right, I've just done purl 6 and purl 2 together and turned the work. So I'm going to knit 6 and make 1. Just the same as before. So just when I get to the last stitch, pick up that bar and knit into the back of it. Okay, and now finally I'm going to purl 7 and purl 2 together, and that will complete our edge triangle. So purl 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and you can see again that big gap between those last 2 stitches, and you can also see that is the last stitch available to me, which is handy. So purl those 2 together. Now my pattern says do not turn, but I'm just going to turn it quickly just to show you what it looks like. So if I move my needle out the way, what you will see is the first triangle that we made in our setup row has now got this really neat triangle sort of filling in that edge. And you can clearly see we can now start to come off this edge of the triangle with our rectangle. So that is part 1 of the 3 parts of the rectangle row completed.